Hey session heads, you guys know that this Colorado Sessions project is a mashup between Colorado, craft beer, and music. Today's episode is about music, and I'm calling it What's in a Name Part 1. And the name in question today is Grettir Martinsson. Now this is an Icelandic styled name. I'm not gonna say it's an Icelandic name because I don't know if there's a single person on the planet that actually has this name, but it's styled as an Icelandic name. In Iceland, last names are usually patronymic. They refer to your father. Nowadays, I think you're starting to see some that refer to your mother as well. So for example, if my father was Charles and my mother was Diana, I'm not saying I have a claim to the throne, but just mull that around a bit. My last name would be Charlesson or maybe Dianason. My sister Sarah would have a completely different last name than me. She would be Sarah Charlesdottir or maybe Sarah Dianasdottir. My father Charles would have a different last name than us. He would be Charles Philipsson or maybe Charles Elizabethson. And my mother Diana would be Diana Jonsdottir or Diana Francisdottir. I had to look that one up. Any rate, so that's why this is an Icelandic name. Martinsson is an Icelandic styled last name, which would mean son of Martin, obviously. So the story. Last year, I had the great fortune and honor to be able to perform in Iceland. I did a ring road tour around the country, 5 shows on the ring road and one out on the island of Vestmannaeyjar. And when I got to Reykjavik, to my hotel, and opened up my guitar case, I found that my guitar had been smashed. And I was crestfallen, to say the least. I went into an immediate depression. I had worked so hard to line up all these shows, and here I am, and now my guitar is smashed and I have no guitar to play. So I went into what my mother would call a pity party, and I just was sitting there feeling sorry for myself. My family, who was with me, thank goodness, were not paralyzed by self-pity, and they immediately sprang to action and said, we're gonna go out into Reykjavik and we're gonna find duct tape and we're gonna fix that guitar so you can play. Now, you guitar players out there know this is probably not gonna work. This was a pretty bad damage to my guitar, and duct tape is just not gonna hold. So I was not hopeful, but they knew we need to do something. So they went out while I sat there in a downward spiral, just staring at this broken guitar, bemoaning my situation. But eventually I did get over myself. I remembered, from all my experience, Steve, you're a musician, and this is the life you chose, and you're gonna run into problems. There's gonna be canceled hotels, bad weather, lack of sound system, nobody shows to a show or something. I've run into all sorts of things that I thought were devastating at the time, and I've learned you just have to suck it up and do the best you can do. You've got to do something. So once I did get over myself, I decided maybe I can rent a guitar. It's not optimal. I don't know if anyone's going to rent me a guitar to go all the way around the country, and it means I got to come back to Reykjavik, which was not in the plans. But I got online and I saw that right down the street from us was a music store called Sangita Mia. I hope I'm saying that right. We were staying in the old section of Reykjavik, and it was just a few blocks down the street. So I decided to go there. I set out walking there, and while I'm going, I get a call from my wife who says, we couldn't find duct tape. I don't know if it's an Icelandic thing or not, but we found a music store, and we're standing out inside of it. And I said, is it Sangita Mia? And she said, yes. I'm on my way. So I get there, and the guy running the place, and I do not know if he was the owner or the manager, I'm not sure, but he was so nice, so kind. They were about to close, but he kept the place open. And they're not a big music store, they're a small boutique store, and they really specialize in world instruments from all different countries. But they did have a small section of just a few acoustic guitars. And he pulled out an amp, plugged it in. He felt so bad about my situation. I could tell he was very compassionate. Let me try all these guitars out. And as I'm playing them, there's this one guitar that kind of seemed like it could work. It sounded pretty good. It had a sound system, internal electronics, so it could plug into a sound system. And it wasn't crazy expensive. Now, everything in Iceland is a little more expensive, in some cases a lot more expensive, because it's an island. Everything has to be imported. But this wasn't outrageously expensive. So I'm sitting there playing it, but you know, if you're a guitar player, you know when it's time to buy a new guitar, you do not just go out and buy a guitar. You play every guitar within a 50-mile radius, and you wait to fall in love with one, right? It's like Harry Potter and the wands. It's like the guitar will choose you. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, you know, buying a guitar, because it turns out he did not rent guitars. And this is when my wife, who was more objective and pragmatic about it, said, Steve, you need to buy this guitar. If you don't have a guitar, this whole trip is different. You've worked for all these shows, all these people are waiting for you. You just figure it out later, but just you need to buy this guitar if this is the right one. So I did. I bought it. And at that point, a lady came in, an Icelandic lady, and she was also, I don't know if she was the owner or if they were a couple, I'm not sure, but they were both obviously invested in this store and managing it. But she was also very, very sympathetic to my situation and said, well, you've got to tell this story as you go around the ring road. This is an amazing story, you know, and so we decided the guitar had to have a name. And I said, well, I want it to have an Icelandic name so that when I get back to the States, I'll have this memory of Iceland. It'll always remind me of this time when my family jumped in and when you guys were so kind. And so I decided, well, the last name needs to either be Martinsson or Martinsdóttir, because it's replacing my Martin guitar. It's the child of Martin. And I wasn't sure if it was male or female yet. I had just met the guitar, hadn't really got to know it. And she said, well, the first name has to be Grettir, which is a famous Viking, Grettir the Strong. He has a saga, I believe. And so she said, so it's Martinsson. So we named the guitar Grettir Martinsson. It's a Kala guitar, which I didn't know Kala made guitars. I know them for their ukulele. But it not only got me through my Ring Road tour, it sounded great. It was a wonderful story that everyone was interested in. All the Icelanders were so sympathetic to my plight. Everyone felt for me, and everyone was so supportive when I played. It was the most wonderful tour. It was just incredible. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. And now I use Grettir Martinsson as my backup guitar. So if you come out to see me live and you want to meet Grettir, just ask. I've probably got him. And sometimes I put him in an alternate tuning and I use him not just as a backup. But yeah, so that is the saga of Grettir Martinsson. And I need to give a huge shout out to my family for not giving up even when I was about to Sangita Mia Music for being so kind and accommodating and letting me go through the process of getting my head around buying a guitar on the spot and making that decision, to my local guitar repair guy, Michael Miller, who fixed my Martin, and it works fine now. I use it as my primary guitar. And to the wonderful people of Iceland who were so supportive and kind during that trip. So it all worked out. My Martin is here. It's got, you know, you can see the damage on it, but it plays just fine. Michael Miller did his magic. And this is introducing Grettir Martinsson, the Kala guitar that got me through my Icelandic tour, and it has the wonderful story behind it. So anyway, that's it, the saga of Grettir Martinsson. The next episode that I do is going to be What's in a Name Part 2, and that is the same trip, a different name. The name in question this time is my name. All right, so I'll see you out there on the road, guys.